Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we've got a fascinating challenge for you. Usually, our source material is this thick stack of articles,
Yeah,
research papers, maybe some deep annotated notes.
right. Stuff we can really sink our teeth into.
Exactly. But for this deep dive, we're doing something a bit different. We're performing a meta-analysis.
And our entire data set is,
Nice.
what, just a couple of titles?
That's it. It's excerpts from Foundations of English Fluency, Episode 1, and then its supplementary title, Learn English Speaking from Zero, Episode 1.
It's an unusual, but I think a brilliant approach.
Our mission is to treat these words like
Yeah.
an architectural blueprint. We want to see if we can reverse engineer the entire course, figure out the scope, the structure, the audience.
Just from the promise embedded in the titles.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We're basically analyzing the learning contract that's being offered here.
And what's fascinating is how carefully chosen these words have to be. They define not just what the listener is supposed to learn, but, and this is critical, how the material intends to be delivered.
Right.
We have to decode the weight carried by terms like foundations, fluency, and zero.
It raises a big question right away, doesn't it? What exact structure, what pedagogical structure is required to actually deliver on a promise that big?
And to do it efficiently.
So let's dive right in with that main title, Foundations of English Fluency.
Okay.
Let's isolate that first pillar.
Yeah.
Foundations.
Mm.
To me, this word is designed to appeal directly to a learner who wants to move quickly, but also wants to do it right.
Yes, thoroughly. It implies a real commitment to stability. They aren't just selling you a quick phrase book for your vacation.
People or isolated tips.
Exactly. A true foundation suggests the course has to focus on core, high-utility building blocks, the structural elements that everything else, well, rests upon.
It's like it's telling the listener, look, you won't feel overwhelmed because we're giving you the necessary scaffolding first.
Right.
If you think about language as a construction project, the foundation guarantees that you're not building the second story on, loose sand.
That's a great analogy.
It eliminates that common anxiety for beginners, which is, am I just memorizing random facts or am I actually building towards something real?
And the answer here is explicitly the latter. It has to be.
And that structural commitment, it's tied directly to that second critical word in the title, fluency.
Right. And fluency immediately sets the goalpost far beyond just, basic comprehension or some kind of academic mastery.
Oh, absolutely. Fluency implies practical application. It implies real-time communication, competence, and confidence.
And that focus shifts entirely. It moves away from achieving a perfect grammar score and toward, well, functional communication.
That is a massive psychological difference for a learner.
It's huge.
When the goal is fluency, the teaching methodology has to prioritize successful output, even if it's imperfect output, over just rote memorization.
And that's where the methodology starts to become visible, just from the title. If we connect foundations to fluency, we know the material has to follow that 80-20 rule of language learning.
The Pareto principle.
Exactly. Ruthlessly prioritizing the 20% of vocabulary and grammar structures that account for, 80% of daily communication?
So for a new learner, this means skipping less common tenses
Or obscure idioms, yeah. And
Right.
focusing entirely on high-impact utility from day one.
It's all about reducing the cognitive load, isn't it?
It has to be.
If a learner feels they're successfully using the language in simple interactions immediately, their motivation it skyrockets.
And fluency relies just as much on that confidence as it does on vocabulary.
Yes. By building a strong, simplified foundation, the resource is actively working to reduce the learner's, the affective filter.
That feeling of anxiety or fear that just shuts down speech production, that's a key insight. The promise of foundations of fluency isn't merely linguistic, it's psychological.
It's saying, we'll build a simple, stable base for you, and because you trust that base, you will be brave enough to speak.
And if the methodology doesn't prioritize that low-stakes, immediate, successful output, the promise of fluency is broken. It doesn't matter how much grammar they teach.
Which brings us to a point of tension. Because if fluency is the destination, we have to look at that secondary title to define the starting line for this journey.
And the starting line is defined in no uncertain terms. Learn English speaking from zero.
Yes.
And this is where the commitment gets really intense. I mean, how do you reconcile promising long-term fluency, which can take hundreds of hours, with starting from absolute true zero?
That gap, right, that climb from zero to fluency, it's enormous.
It is.
This resource can't be a ladder. It has to be designed to be an escalator.
That's it. It requires an accelerated, ruthlessly prioritized learning curve, or the true beginner is just going to give up.
So the only way to bridge that gap is through just radical clarity and efficiency.
The course has to be designed to get the learner out of that A0, the absolute beginner category, and into A1, the beginner category, faster than they would in a traditional, slower-paced classroom.
It demands constant, immediate positive reinforcement.
It does.
So, okay, let's focus now on that clarifying title. Learn English speaking from zero. This is where it gets really interesting to me.
I agree.
The phrase from zero, it explicitly defines the audience. Absolute beginners, assuming, literally no prior knowledge.
And that zero label is both a massive commercial draw and an immense instructional challenge.
How so?
Well, it signals maximum accessibility, anyone can listen, but it means the material has to be crafted to introduce concepts without relying on any pre-existing linguistic framework someone might have.
Right. And crucially, they emphasize speaking. The focus isn't just English, which could imply, studying syntax or history.
Passive understanding, yeah.
It's English speaking, which underlines a pragmatic, verbal, and conversational approach from the very first minute.
And analyzing that challenge, zero combined with speaking, forces us to consider the technical demands of phonetics.
Ah, okay.
When you start from zero, you can't assume the learner's native language even contains the sounds necessary to pronounce English words.
That's a technical depth most people might just gloss over.
Right.
It's not just about learning words, it's about physically learning to make new sounds with your mouth.
Exactly. For a true zero learner, episode 1 must dedicate time to introducing the core sound system, the phonetics.
So things like instruction on mouth position.
Mouth position may be focusing on minimal pairs where two words differ by only one sound.
Right, forcing the learner to differentiate new sounds that might not exist in their first language.
And if the learner can't produce the sounds, they can't speak. And the whole speaking promise just collapses right there.
So episode 1 can't just teach them to say, hello, my name is. It has to teach them the physical mechanics of the sounds within hello, my name is first.
It does. And that's a significant cognitive load right at the very start.
It is, which means the course must minimize linguistic jargon and complexity in every other area. The commitment to zero means introducing grammar structures, using only simple, repeatable examples.
Yes. And we have to consider what specific grammar rules, if you introduce them too early, would just place too heavy a cognitive load on a true zero learner.
Okay, so things like the passive voice, which is structurally complex.
Absolutely out. Or advanced conditional tenses. They have to be deferred entirely.
So what do you prioritize?
If the foundational premise is to achieve basic communication rapidly, the course has to prioritize the simple present and maybe the future will or going to structure. Almost everything else can wait.
Because the goal is communicative effectiveness, not linguistic perfection.
Not in the early stages, no. The structure has to be simple enough to guarantee that aha moment, that instant ability to use what you just learned without confusion.
Which brings us right to the chronological significance of episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just lesson 1 out of 50. It's the inaugural episode of a course promising fluency from zero, built on foundations. It carries an immense structural load for the entire series.
It absolutely does. You have to think of it as the single most critical cornerstone of a skyscraper.
Right.
If this one episode fails to engage, or it confuses the learner, or it just fails to deliver a palpable sense of progress,
The learner loses motivation.
Yeah.
And the promise of fluency is instantly broken for that person.
gone instantly.
So what is the absolute non-negotiable minimum that episode 1 has to achieve to set the stage for the rest of this series?
And
Needs to deliver what? Conceptual clarity, powerful motivation, and a crystal clear path forward. But how?
Well, a successful episode 1 has to perform 3 critical functions simultaneously to validate the whole series.
Okay, what's the first one?
Firstly, as we just discussed, it has to introduce the core sound system, the basic sounds required to even access the language. That gives the learner the physical tools of speech.
Right, the phonetics. Got it.
Yeah.
What's the second function?
2, it must provide the learner with an immediate, usable output.
The validation step.
Exactly. It can't just be theory. The learner has to walk away being able to successfully execute a high-impact communicative task, like a basic greeting, asking a simple question, or introducing themselves.
And crucially, they must not just memorize the phrase, but understand the structure of the phrase.
That's a key distinction, yes.
So not just memorizing, hello, my name is Sarah, but understanding that my name is X is a simple subject-verb complement structure.
That can be immediately adapted.
Right, to my job is Y, Or my car is Z. It teaches adaptability, which is really the heart of fluency.
Exactly right. The first lesson has to teach the learner how to learn the language. It has to show them that the simple structures they master in episode 1 are instantly transferable.
Okay, so we have the sound system and immediate usable output.
And the third essential function.
3. It must establish the methodology and validate that zero starting point. It has to prove its accessibility by using zero jargon and being entirely self-contained for the novice.
The sequencing is non-negotiable.
Not at all. If they start with complex vocabulary that requires a dictionary or jump into grammar rules that rely on previous knowledge, the entire course structure just collapses. Episode 1 has to teach the learner to trust the method itself.
So what does this all mean? I mean, purely from reverse engineering these titles, we've uncovered a highly detailed pedagogical commitment.
It seems so.
This resource is promising a highly structured, accessible, and pragmatically focused path to real-world communication. And it's specifically designed to bypass the fear and confusion that so often plagues an absolute beginner.
The titles imply a course that understands that starting from scratch is, well, it's intimidating. So the curriculum design has to be laser-focused on efficient knowledge transfer and rapid skill acquisition. So the success of a foundational resource like this, it relies entirely on the clarity, the structure, and the tangible utility delivered in its very first lesson.
It is the ultimate test of curriculum design. Everything hinges on episode 1.
That brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. Given this incredibly rigorous demand on the very first lesson to build the foundations for fluency starting from zero, we have to find the absolute non-negotiable building block.
The cornerstone.
If you are teaching English speaking from zero, what single linguistic concept, be it a specific verb structure, a phonetic rule, or a necessary social convention, is the most essential, non-negotiable cornerstone that must be taught and mastered in episode 1 for the entire foundation to stand?
That is the hidden piece of knowledge that defines this whole approach.
What do you think that core mechanic has to be?